Hello, civilized people. Every 4 years, national political parties gather the movers and shakers from the subordinate state and county parties across the country to essentially hold a pep rally to generate enthusiasm for their presidential candidate. These pep rallies traditionally give a platform to big donors, celebrities, and influential figures within the party. But the RNC convention this year, well, something was different. OnlyFan models, celebrity ministers, professional wrestlers, tradesmen, an obese dog, union bosses, and members of the political opposition were cheered, while longtime members of the Republican Party itself were frequently met with jeering or a silent and cold reception. This avant garde political event seemed to focus less upon what the party had long stood for and more to celebrate something entirely new. So ignore the traditional expectations of American politics. Embrace the socioeconomic values of the classic blue collar left and the conservative financial practices of the American right to build a political machine capable of ignoring traditional political divisions of the past. Become the shield who protects both the common man and common sense from their inevitable betrayal by the demonstrably corrupt political elite. As today, on the Goths and Rome podcast, we are happy to announce the birth of a brand new political ideology, national populism. So, Colt, how you doing today?
Could be better. How about you?
Could be better. What's wrong in the world, Colton?
I can't
What's
hear
eating
out my
at you?
right ear.
Oh, that'll do it.
Yeah.
That'll do it. I'm doing pretty well for what it's worth. I will try to hear out of my right ear to make sure everything sounds good on the right. You know, for your sake.
Hmm.
Yes. So, yeah, we watched the Republican convention so that you, our beloved listeners, don't have to. Though I have to say, it was surprisingly entertaining. Uh, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, bit long-winded at times, but yeah.
Yes, I have to give some, I suppose, congratulations to Donald Trump for delivering the longest nomination acceptance speech in American history, I believe. I believe that 92 minutes is the longest. And also, he has now entered a rare club of being one of very few candidates to have won his party's nomination 3 times. And the first Republican, the other two being FDR and Andrew Jackson. Though Andrew Jackson actually won the electoral vote 3 times, though not with enough electors to put him in office on his first attempt. So that's a very hard track record to beat. But still. So what do you? I mean, is it just me, or does it seem like the Republican Party has shifted dramatically over the last 10 years?
Yeah, no, we're seeing, the once in 70 years political realignment for both parties, and I guess this time around the Republicans are courting the labor vote.
They're very heavily courting the labor vote, very heavily. Um, I think we ought to just throw this one out first. The head of Teamsters International, who did not endorse Trump and who has actively said he is not endorsing anybody this time, despite not endorsing Trump, was brought in to be given a platform to speak. And that says a lot about Trump's take on organized labor. That speaks volumes. Uh, Hell, they also had the head of, I believe it's the Steelworkers Union in Pennsylvania, speak as well. And before this event, there had never been a union leader, I believe, outside of police or firefighters. And I'm not even sure with them if they had been there to have ever spoken at a Republican National Convention. Like, did you have that on your bingo card, Colton?
No, I didn't, but considering, the last few election cycles, I'm surprised if the what are they called? The Border Patrol Union didn't endorse Trump or speak at their convention in
Well,
the past.
the Border Control Union generally endorses Republicans, but they don't speak at them, where they're a government agency of that
Also,
nature.
Border Patrol, not Border Control. I misspoke.
Yes, we knew what you meant.
Yeah.
Uh, Border Patrol does generally align to the right.
Anyways,
But
though,
yes, it seems like you have, while you're not seeing the push for, a national healthcare system, that doesn't actually have as much support in the US as a lot of people think. Um, Most of your blue collar workers that push for it in other countries are generally pretty happy with, the healthcare they get that their unions negotiate, and they prefer that. So broadly, that's not that popular. But actually, taking a stand of, hey, look, these people provide a valuable service. Maybe we should give them a platform to speak is not something you would have expected from the Republican Party of even outside of Trump 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And now you're actually seeing that become something that the party embraces. Thoughts, Colt?
I mean, it's pretty remarkable the coalition that, for lack of a better word, just because I don't like the sound of national populism, um, I'm gonna say Trumpism. The coalition that
Yes.
Trumpism is building or has built and is continuing to bolster is really impressive. And the only people they've really pushed out is like the business Republicans, the free market Republicans.
The country club Republicans.
Yeah, and those people, despite having a considerable amount of money, um, it's not a lot of the vote share to lose.
It's a very small amount of the vote share to have lost to have picked up blue collar Democrats. A
and
very small amount of the vote share to lose.
and it's not as if the new Democratic coalition is attempting to to coax these country club Republican types.
Nope, nope. You basically have the homeless country club Republicans now. They're uh what's the third party movement with that they were trying to get Manchin and Haley on a ticket together?
I have no clue, but that sounds awful.
Uh No Labels Party to essentially run someone as an independent or to present a unity ticket. The that's kind of what the country club Republicans have resigned themselves to. That's what you're they're like the Lincoln Project. Is that what it is?
I have no clue, but either way, that's
Yeah.
what their coping has amounted to, and not. I think in reality they'll just hold their nose and continue voting Republican.
At this, given their own finances and investments, they will probably continue to reluctantly vote Republican or simply not vote. There's not really in it anything in it for them to vote Democrat unless you wound up with, a Joe Manchin at the top of the ticket for the Democratic Party. Now, I think we have to talk about some of the people that were at, you know, were actually speakers during the Republican convention. that you probably wouldn't have expected to be there. One of them being Amber Rose, a rapper and an OnlyFans model,
Is that
which
what she is? I
considering,
thought she was a stripper.
well, OnlyFans model,
Same thing, I suppose.
just a video stripper, I guess. It probably makes a bit more money. Larger market, much larger market, larger potential market. But yeah, given the typically very religious, you know, perception of the right, that's not something that you would have expected. I was shocked when I heard that she was going to be presenting and speaking at this event.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I didn't look up who was speaking beforehand. So when I saw a biracial woman walk out with a face tattoo, I was
Yeah, a bit shocked.
I wasn't gonna say shocked. I was just like,
Yeah,
I, I
we had the first facial tattoo at a Republican convention, probably even from a person in the audience.
yeah, it's just a sign of the times.
Yeah, and I mean, I believe, Lord, you had Billy Graham's son. Billy Graham being a very famous evangelical minister. He's not a televangelist. He would travel, he would write, he was theologian. He founded, I believe, his own seminary school, things of that nature. And his son was there. And so you had one of the most respected Christian theologians, Protestant theologians of the time, presenting at the same event as a woman who, you know, sells videos on OnlyFans.
Her
Uh, th-
largely the her only claim to fame was being Kanye West's girlfriend and them having sex. Like
Yeah,
that's
pretty
wild
much.
times. Wild times.
I mean, strange bedfellows these days.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can't cast too much judgment just because whatever. I don't really
Yeah,
care
like
that much.
I don't judge people for doing stuff like that. Goodness sake, make your money, go for it. But still, it's just a very odd thing to see politically, to see that kind of,
Yeah, just
you know,
at a national convention.
at a national convention. Uh, Next up, I think one of the more humorous aspects was when Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, Republican, came out to speak. He got a very lukewarm welcome, which I think a lot of that comes down to him having, provided support to Ukraine, which is not something Republicans are terribly keen on under the current economic circumstances. And he was like, he received some applause, but given that, the OnlyFans model was much more well received than he was, that ought to tell you something. But I do think arguably the most humorous part of the entire convention was the fact that mid sentence, a teleprompter died, and they wound up having to stop everything for almost an hour while the backup band had to come out and just play what the hell ever for an hour without any announcement. You know, that damn teleprompter, Colton.
We have no politicians capable of just speaking directly to the people without it
I
being
know.
a consensus approved by 20 different writers.
I don't know. There's a few that speak without teleprompter. Trump has frequently spoken without teleprompter. Uh, I believe Vivek frequently spoke without teleprompter.
You know those are
Speaking,
very different than than who we're talking about. You know,
Well, yes. Oh,
you're just naming people.
there is. Well, yes. Speaking of which, something that was discussed in a lot of the media surrounding it is that where Vance has been tapped as vice president, if Trump wins, which right now it looks like he probably will, we'll go into that a bit later. Uh, there appears to be a strong possibility that Vivek will be will be Vance's replacement,
As Senate,
which
as senator.
as a senator, and if not, he's probably going into the cabinet as Vivek Ramaswamy, the guy that the media was claiming, oh, he's a smartass, got probably one of the best receptions there. And this is from, again, a- this is not something you would have generally expected in the party, 10 years ago. But here we are. So, let's see, moving on. I don't know if you were, did you watch when they were calling out the delegate counts for the states?
Yeah.
Yeah, there were two things during that process that we'll save the really funny one for second. But Maryland called out and mentioned Larry Hogan, and the room essentially went silent. Now, I've met the people that ran Hogan's campaign when he was running for office in Maryland originally, and to their credit, getting a Republican to win office in Maryland is pretty damned impressive. That said, in this election cycle and over the last few years, Hogan has been very, very staunchly anti-Trump. Then Hogan comes out and asks for Trump's endorsement. Trump, in my eyes, probably pretty generously agreed to give it. And then Hogan basically turned around and 2 days later condemned Trump. Uh, so the room seemed to go a bit silent whenever, Maryland was like, hey, Larry Hogan. And there didn't seem to be much love there for him, as he's probably the most ardently anti Trump Republican running this cycle. And he's probably going to lose. Uh, you care to go over the Kentucky one, Colton? I know you got a kick out of this one.
I actually don't remember it.
Mitch McConnell.
Oh yeah, the turtle.
Yes, the turtle.
Um, yeah, he was kind of like nobody was happy to see him for sure. Everyone was just
Yeah,
like,
he he was the fella calling out the delegate count for Kentucky, and he had to like stop speaking 2 or 3 times because of the booing. And he's the minority leader of the Senate. Like he is the top ranking Republican in the Senate right now. He was not well received at all.
it's kind of
Not
funny.
well received at all. And you could sort of see like the awkward expression on his face when it was happening. And yeah, something tells me that he's probably not going to be in the Senate much longer. I think he's going to be replaced. I think there will be a concerted effort. Next up, just a few key takeaways from this is mostly gut, and it comes from, how people speak. And you can tell if somebody's coming out to just give an endorsement or if somebody's coming out to give an endorsement while also elevating their own brand. And there were three people that spoke during the course of the convention. that I think are going to be running for the presidency in 28. Actually, I'm going to throw in a fourth one after this. But just based upon how they spoke, Lee Zeldin.
Yeah,
The next one is Byron Donalds.
respect.
I think Byron Donalds could actually be a good candidate, though I don't think he's the best of the three I'm going to list here. But the third one is Glenn Youngkin. And while right now, we'll get into the polls later on quite a few states, but Glenn Youngkin flipped Virginia before it was cool to do it. So he- he's got a very broad, he's got very broad appeal. In fact, there were a lot of people that were shocked that he didn't run this time around. Um, though I think it was smart that he didn't. Then I think we both know that there's one person that got up on that stage that is going to be running again in 28, other than maybe Vance. And I think it's safe to say DeSantis is going to run again. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he's gonna break into the new young core that's forming with his, outstanding charisma.
That's kind of his problem. You can't like the three people I just mentioned, Zeldin, Donalds, and Youngkin, are all very good speakers. Very good speakers. And they really have, charismatic personalities. The only thing DeSantis can win a debate on is numbers. Uh, no offense to any engineers listening, but he has you know, all the charisma of a traditional engineer. And I say that knowing a lot of engineers and having them as my friends. But still, very much, a numbers focus. He doesn't convey emotion well. And yeah, he apparently still sucks as a public speaker, but he still seems very well respected. I was a bit shocked because he seemed to get a very good reception as well whenever he came out, despite a lot of people being very turned off by him having run against Trump in the primary.
So my thinking with DeSantis is that during he's a good candidate and probably the right candidate for the Republicans going in the future, but not 28 and not 32, because we're still going to be going through this time of political change and the parties changing, right? And you need someone that's loud and boisterous to keep that coalition together. And when you can have boring candidates again, is when he can cut, because he is a great executive.
Yes, uh, love his policies or hate his policies. He's very good at getting his policies enacted. And I know I've mentioned this in some older videos, but he can take most of the responsibility for Florida being a swing state to Florida being a state where registered Republicans outnumber registered Democrats by more than a million. And he's basically done that in what, 6 years now?
Something like
He
that.
gets a lot of the credit for that. So he's very good as an executive and he's very good at managing a party. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be a while before, you can get a boring candidate again, I think. I think we also ought to talk about Vance a bit. Of, I know the short list of candidates that Trump was considering for VP were Vance, Burgum, and Rubio. And of those three, I thought Vance was the best. I didn't think he was at early on. I didn't think he was necessarily the best VP choice, but I do think that of those three, he was the best to complement Donald Trump. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. If we want to go more into it, then I'm more than willing to. But
Please do.
I
Please do.
so like I guess we've been alluding to the whole episode and saying directly is that there is the new ideological swing of the right, and for lack of a better word, I'm calling it Trumpism. And as much as Vance was an anti-Trumper, and then he changed his opinion. Whether how much of that is politicians speak or not, I don't know. But how much of that is the stuff that Vance has already agreed with, we do know. And we can tell from the speeches that he gave in the past when he was just an author and not a politician, that he is very much a fan of the protectionism, the pro labor stuff, right? So
Yes.
he is, and he's so smart. He's if you've ever listened to him talk, he's very eloquent, and he's probably the smartest senator in the Senate. I'll give that to him. I didn't, and Robert can attest to this. I didn't like him as the VP pick.
Yeah.
So
I think you were expecting him. I think you were hoping for what?
I was
A
hoping for a
Ramaswamy.
Vivek, and I I was leaning towards what was I thought was realistic was like Byron Donalds.
Yeah. I never thought Byron was going to be it.
I always thought it was going to be one of the younger people.
I mean, JD Vance is only 39. So
Exactly. That's
so he is definitely younger. And
but
I think that age difference is significant because it actually creates, someone who is something of a leader within the ideology that Trump is advocating for. And that is significant to a politician to do that. And that's an area where on the left, they've really, really failed.
yeah, and just to continue my point though is that
Yes.
I don't know how much of Trump's policy is Trump, thinking in ideological terms and doing it in a political thought kind of way versus his ego and versus just what he thinks is right, and without thinking much about it. And I can't argue with his decision making because I agree they were pretty good decisions. But again, I don't know if he got to those opinions from a logical place versus I don't like China, which fair enough. So,
Yeah.
but JD Vance is much more ideological and a thinker, and he is someone that can make the Trumpism ideology into something that's actually an ideology rather than the thoughts of a man that other politicians are trying to emulate.
Yeah. And, I kind of want to, I want to take this moment to kind of, toot the horn of my own homeland, if you will, because earlier, whenever I mentioned presidents who had, won three nominations,
Mm-hmm.
you know what FDR and Andrew Jackson both have in common?
Being
They're both
Democrats.
they're both from Appalachia. And
I thought
now there's
FDR is
been,
from New York.
unless I'm mistaken, FDR was actually from Western Pennsylvania.
I'm pretty sure the whole Roosevelt family is like from New York because they're like all old Dutch.
Give me a second. I might be mistaken. You are right. You are right. I thought FDR was from Western Pennsylvania.
No, they're like
Who
old school
who
money, New York.
who was I thinking of? Okay, yeah, yeah. I was mistaken on that. But we still get Jackson, and he was the badass of the two. Let's be candid.
feel like
One of these,
your tooting of your own horn got tooted right back at you.
it did, but still, for some, I know there was another one who was from that area, but I guess I am mistaken on that. For some reason, I thought it was FDR. I don't know. But moving along, the Vance choice, I believe, does help Trump in a lot of ways. I believe it helps win over a lot of the moderates
I
who
don't.
like Trumpism, but they don't like Trump. I
I disagree.
really,
I don't think a lot of people separate Trumpism from Trump. I think that is not a thing that's a thing yet. I think Vance is the one that will make that a thing, provided that he is the heir apparent.
well, yes, I think he provides a friendlier disposition, a little less loud, a little less noisy, but basically the same principles. That makes that pill easier to swallow. That's what I think he brings to the table in that regard. And I also think just by virtue of being younger, it, you know, I think a lot of people were sort of just looking. You've got Democrats that don't want to vote for Biden, and you've got Republicans that didn't want to vote for Trump. And they were basically looking for VP picks that give them permission to do that. And I think that Vance did that. Do you agree?
No,
Really?
no. I think Vance is a doubling down. That's that's what I. He's someone that's gonna do exact like so that basically Trump can be in two different places at once. That's what I think Vance is. He's a doubling down on the ideology and the changing Republican Party.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it was a matter of the ideology. I'm talking about a matter of personality. I think people that just did not like Trump as Trump. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't. I My opinion is I don't think Vance is gonna have any effect whatsoever on an electoral ballot count wise. I can't see it. He barely even won his own state. He had to ask for like $10 million extra from his donors and from Trump, or not from Trump. Who was it at the time that was the head of the Republicans?
McDaniel?
Yeah, like it wasn't a good look.
Yeah, it wasn't. But I do think he will. I think he'll help Trump in a few states. I think he will help a little bit with securing white working voters, which I think will have a small, but I'd have to say probably meaningful effect for Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota, and maybe even, some of the more rural areas of Illinois. So not so much for the statewide election in Illinois, but for down ballot stuff, I think there will be an impact. What that pans out to, I don't know. But given all of the other bumps that Trump has gotten this election, I'm not sure there's that much more to add. Because he's been, indicted 3 times, 4 times, and those always give him a bump. And then somebody tried to shoot him and he got a bump. And yeah,
Man's got so many bumps now. He looks pregnant.
I know. So
Expecting to win the election. Hey,
next up, I think Nikki Haley's political career is over. She got some applause, but it was not enthusiastic. Not from what I saw. I was actually somewhat surprised that she was there. What are your thoughts?
I actually turned off her speech, so, but I don't know. I think if she still has like some cheers from her state, then that's fine. But And it's obviously a matter of incumbent or not. If her seat's secure and she chooses to still run, then she's got it.
Well,
But
she doesn't hold any office right now.
oh yeah, she's done.
I don't see a path for her outside of a third party. Not at this point. And let's see. Uh, the next one I'm going to throw out was that Mike Pompeo spoke, and he was also not terribly well received, which generally goes to show how unpopular a lot of people who were popular during the Bush years, how unpopular those people popular in the Bush years are now. Although I have to give him some credit, the man lost a lot of weight,
Good
so he's
for him.
clearly doing something right health wise. Like honestly, I did not recognize him when he came out on stage. He looks like like he's aged a bit, but he looks a hell of a lot healthier. He looks a hell of a lot healthier. So good on you, Mike. Like you see, it seems like he's making use of his time outside of politics to improve himself, and that's a good thing, Colton.
So it would seem.
Uh, you know, and one that is kind of funny was that you had the governor of West Virginia speaking, and Jim Justice, the governor of West Virginia. When Trump won office in 2016, he was a Democrat. Jim Justice was a Democrat, and he switched parties, I believe, a year and a half or 2 years into Trump's term. And he seems to be very much on board with, Trumpism or national populism. I think, I think Trumpism is a good colloquial name, but I think if we're going to, get into the weeds and give it a, I don't know, like the fancy species name for an animal. I think national populism is that fancy, scientific name.
Mm.
But yeah, Jim Justice, former Democrat, was up there speaking. And, you know, for an event that is, supposed to be very serious, the man pulled out a chair and brought up a very heavy set bulldog to sit there with him while he was speaking. I didn't see that coming either, Colton.
Just it's just
It,
more stuff that it's just a sign of the times.
it, it's like the Republican Party is trying to get rid of all the pomp and, just appeal to the average man. I mean, hell, if I could take my dogs on stage when I was giving a speech, I'd sure as hell do it.
I don't think your dogs would help an election chance.
I agree. They probably wouldn't, but still, like I'd still take them up there. I don't care. I love my dogs, and yeah, like that's just another sign that you're trying to get, average Joe appeal. It keeps. It seems like everything is designed for the common man in this, in so many ways, and then of course you had Tucker Carlson, which I find really kind of humorous. Not not because of anything specific that he said, but because Fox News fired Tucker Carlson and then showed Tucker Carlson as a presenter at the Republican National Convention. kind of indicating that they fired him and then he moved up in the world,
Hmm.
which I find quite humorous. Out of curiosity, what did you? There were rumors about it for a while, but what did you make of Tucker Carlson as a potential vice presidential pick?
I thought it would have been a fun thing, just kind of like how people talk about like Michelle Obama as a candidate to replace Biden, and it's like, yeah, it'd be fun, but I don't think either one of them would agree to it. So,
I think Tucker makes way too much money where he is now. I think he is very content. But I
think
think he would be a very solid choice for VP if he took it. Just because I know a lot of Democrats who actually really liked Tucker Carlson just because they thought he was funny.
I'd like to see him do guest appearances as the press secretary.
That would be kind of hilarious.
Yeah, just like like once a month.
Yeah, just so you know, all the media sort of soils themselves just because he he doesn't really play nice with the media, and I kind of like that as a characteristic. But then, of course, in a moment that probably, in a lot of ways, defined this convention, you had Hulk Hogan rip his shirt off on stage at the Republican National Convention. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that nobody had that on their bingo card for 2024.
Him ripping his shirt off, or him being at the
Him, him, him,
Republican
him
National
doing
Convention?
it on stage at a Republican National Convention.
I mean, that's kind of his thing.
I mean, it is his thing. But not only was he speaking, he was on the final day, which is a day reserved for your, typically your most influential speakers. And he came out, he was immediately followed by Billy Graham's son, who is one of the most influential people among the, amongst evangelical Christians. So there's probably a good, Billy Graham's son, I can't remember his name. Man, I just remember Billy Graham being a thing. What is his name? Franklin Graham. Franklin Graham. He looks just like his father.
You think Hulk Hogan isn't one of the biggest evangelists in the country?
I don't think he's one of the biggest evangelical speakers. No, I don't, in fact.
Then you're
But
messing with
still,
the wrong guy, brother.
yeah. But the fact that you had a presentation from Hulk Hogan followed up immediately by Franklin Graham really says a lot about
I'd
the
hate to follow
Republican
that up.
Party. I, I mean, what? How do you follow that up?
You gotta take off your shirt too. Maybe you
You got
can't
to take your
rip it,
shirt off
but
too.
you gotta take off. You gotta go tarps off.
Yeah, yeah. This was,
You gotta match that energy.
yeah, or the whole convention just felt so eclectic. Like it was almost surreal because it's still hard to believe that you had the leader of the Teamsters at a Republican National Convention. And furthermore, they admitted on stage that they hadn't been invited by the Democrats and that they weren't going to endorse Trump. But, Trump invited them and wanted them there anyway.
I mean, they praised JD Vance.
They did. They did praise Vance. Uh, but this is the world we are in now. It's very, very unusual. Like, it's sort of stunning that there has been this much shift in, you know, how things have happened and what the parties are actually advocating for these days. And was there anybody else that spoke that caught your attention, Colton?
Um, trying to think.
Don Jr.
I mean, that didn't really catch my attention. I expected him to speak.
Not necessarily in who spoke, but in anything, any kind of presentations. And Don Jr. actually came out of nowhere as a very good public speaker in this. Uh, his presentation, any kind of ideology aside, he played to his audience. He played to it well. And I mean, I've on numerous times I've said that Bill Clinton is arguably the best public speaker in American history, and Don Jr. rivaled Clinton in his speaking. So credit there. That's one where I think that was a takeaway.
More
Eric,
reminiscent of what we were last talking about. I think Don Jr.'s best moment was when he was telling off that reporter.
oh yeah, he yeah, there. I suppose we have to get into the other backdrop in all of this. Is that Trump's speech was the at the RNC was the first time he had spoken publicly since the assassination attempt. And while we don't have much in the way of polling following the convention, since the assassination attempt, what what this is insane. New Jersey is now Trump's up by two statewide. Colton, do you care to explain just how insane that is?
I'm still struggling to internalize that that seems to be a fact. I mean, I went over the numbers with you, and I still am just like, that's not real. Surely. So, if that doesn't explain, then I don't
Yes.
know how else to.
Let's put it like this: in 2020, Biden won Pennsylvania by 17 points, and now Trump is up by plus two. That is a 19-point swing in 4 years. A 19-point swing. And Trump is leading there. At this point,
Did you say
usually with,
Pennsylvania?
excuse me, Jersey, he's leading Pennsylvania now. If I'm given the polls I was looking at yesterday, he's leading Pennsylvania by outside the margin of error. Same with Georgia, North Carolina, which that alone, just winning what he won the previous time, is enough to win him the election. There are polls coming out of Nevada that show Trump up by plus 10.
Those ones have been remarkably consistent, like over the past few months.
Yeah, like it keeps like it grows a bit, but right now you're not even looking like you're seeing poll averages that don't really show any tilt states. Um, like New Jersey should not be competitive, and it should be blue, but Trump is polling ahead. Virginia should not really be competitive. It should be blue, but Trump is polling ahead. Minnesota hasn't gone for a Republican in 40 years. But right now, Trump's polling ahead. Hell, if if you saw the same amount of we don't have a very recent poll for New York, but If you saw the same shift in New Jersey, if you see the same shift in New York as you saw in New Jersey, New York's a swing state. Who the hell saw that coming?
I'm going to reply by saying exactly what I said to you when you sent me those polls. Big if true.
Big if true.
Large if factual.
Well, the thing is, with Jersey, we don't have that much polling information. But that is a, but you looked into the numbers on how that polling was conducted. And this was a poll that overwhelmingly seemed to favor Democrats, which you would need to do in order to actually get a good poll, do proper polling in New Jersey. Like Trump up by two, despite the fact that, as far as, the people who participated in this poll, there were 15% more or less more Democrats than Republicans. And yeah,
And if people want to look it up themselves, it's a poll by a coefficient is the
yeah, they actually did a good job. They provided all of the metrics. Like this was a poll that was, it favored young voters, which are generally not great for Republicans. It favored females, which of the two genders are very much, the one that is less likely to be Republican. Of it was better than 50% college educated, which generally does not favor Republican. It was primarily white, but that's also New Jersey. Uh, Only a 3% difference favoring conservatives over liberals, but 45% of people that were polled were moderates. Uh, and about half the people polled have voted in all of the last four general elections. And you didn't really see you don't really get the evangelical tilt because only 5% of the people that did this were actually evangelical. And that sort of leads me to believe that there's no way that the people that were polled led to this favoring Trump. Like it seems to emulate New Jersey pretty well. But that's surprising. But I suppose at this point we need to discuss the state of the election a little bit in relation to Biden. Just because, as of the time of us recording this, within the last hour, we have seen official statements from, well, not necessarily official statements, but unofficial statements from people within the Biden campaign who, and with these being presented within, like 5 minutes of each other, claiming that Biden is going to step out of the race and not endorse anybody, and that no, he's actually going to stay in the race. So the Biden campaign doesn't even know what the hell they're going to do. I mean, what do they do, Colton?
they I don't even I just refreshed some news just because you said that and I was like, oh, did something happen while we were recording? And another hit piece has come out for Biden as we've been talking.
Oh
Is
boy.
Democratic Representative Seth Moulton says Biden recently did not recognize him while they were talking at an event.
Okay.
That it's it's just hit after hit after hit of bad
I,
news and their own they're just eating themselves.
yeah. I mean, I still find it funny that, your progressives like AOC are some of the people that are coming out, criticizing the people that are critiquing him. When the progressives are the ones that didn't like Biden, they wanted Bernie.
Meanwhile, Bernie and AOC are the number one people arguing for Biden to stay in, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are arguing for him to leave. It's kind of bizarre a world.
I mean, yeah, it's very, very strange. Like, for example, Biden ran as a moderate, but he sort of governed as a progressive in a lot of ways, or as progressive as he can get away with. But yeah, man, this has created some very strange bedfellows.
I mean, with Joe Biden, with the friends he has, does he really need enemies?
Yeah, and I mean, a question that was asked, and I think it's a fair question. Biden has very visibly, over the last few weeks, displayed his lack of cognitive function. Is that a fair statement, Colton?
Mm-hmm.
And if Joe Biden has a lack of cognitive function, then he is obviously not running the country. Do you think that is a logical conclusion, Colton?
Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Can you repeat yourself?
Oh, my apologies. If Joe Biden does not have good cognitive function, then who is running the country?
I don't know. The cabinet, his wife, probably not Kamala of all people, but
Oh, we also know that the cabinet has been given scripts for cabinet meetings back
yeah,
in 2023, and there has not been a meeting of the cabinet since 2023.
since
So who the
October
hell?
3rd, I think the date is.
It's October or November of last year. I remember that.
I remember it was before the whole Israel thing, so that's why I'm thinking it's October 3rd.
So the question becomes, who the hell is running the country?
Hunter Biden. I don't know. We can only guess.
We can only guess. Uh, I mean, Obama has apparently been insistent that Biden should drop out because he has no path to win. And I'm not sure what good that does because anybody they could sort of plug in and replace him with either does worse or doesn't do well enough comparatively to make a measurable this difference. And, for example, if you got Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer or any of these more notable Democratic politicians, I mean, if you were in their shoes, would you start your campaign this late in the season and forever tarnish your reputation as being, beaten by Donald Trump?
No, it's a non-starter.
It is. I don't even think they can get somebody who wants to replace him. Not anybody serious, anyway.
I mean, the Democrats just they made a fatal error in anointing Joe Biden instead of having a primary and kicking out RFK.
Yeah, I think if they had had this earlier, they probably would have, and Biden had displayed the cognitive problems, you could have wound up in a position where you did have, you know, a more meaningful and robust primary among the Democratic Party. to where you could have avoided this situation, which is kind of the benefit of a primary. But as things stand now, you're either stuck with Biden on the Democratic side, or Biden steps down and you're stuck with Kamala, who underperforms Trump. I've seen a few, very heavily coping uh, media outlets who have said, oh, she does much better. But I've also looked at the polls that they are citing, and they're not exactly reputable. She actually underperforms Biden with the national popular vote by about a point. And yeah, man, there's the only other option is that you sort of have Biden drop out. And then because they're having to do the convention via essentially a webinar, that's going to take ages if that winds up as an open primary.
You know,
Not
it's
to
funny
mention,
too.
oh, go for it.
CNN addressed this. I think it was yesterday that they're having the convention over the web in like a week thing, and they were
Well,
talking
they're
about
having,
how because of like Ohio, right?
yep, correction. I have to throw out two things. The governor of Ohio, a Republican, actually changed the law since then so they don't have to do it
Yeah, that's what I was.
via
Even
webinar.
CNN reported that they're like, yeah, no, the Democrats are just lying now. Like we could have a primary.
You could have a convention,
Yeah.
and they are going to have a convention. They're just holding the formal nomination process via a webinar.
Speaks
And
volumes.
if Joe Biden drops out, what the hell do they do? I mean, is there any you're going to have how many delegates are there? Ah, Lord.
You also have to remember the Democratic, the super delegates too, because got to
Yep.
have their establishment
There.
picks.
You are essentially going to be having a webinar with 4,672 people. Of those, 3,933 are pledged. But if he drops out, it's a free for all. They can all nominate whoever the hell they want. And you know full well there are going to be progressives in that who are going to, try and get Bernie, that are going to try and get all of these people. They are going to rip themselves apart.
As much as I would love to be a fly on the wall in that scenario, I think it's going to be a bit more organized than that.
Well, yes, at the same point in time, if they, ignore someone who wants to speak, and keep in mind that if they want to nominate someone, they basically, by bylaws, get like 20 minutes to give a speech about them to nominate them. And then they put them up, and then it has to be seconded by the majority of delegates from other states, by a majority of delegates from, I think, 4 other states. So yeah, this is going to be real weird, man. And the thing is, the super delegates don't come in unless the 3,933 common delegates don't get to that number on their own. So they get, several attempts to figure it out themselves. But all of a sudden we've gone from 2016 to 2024 and we're talking about super delegates again. Real deja vu stuff right here. So, what do you think is the best possible situation for the Democratic Party as a party and their political aspirations moving forward?
Um, Same thing I've been saying week after week. Give all your money to your lower ticket stuff. You're not. Good luck.
Uh, I think that at this point, their best case scenario is to keep Biden. Is he an awful candidate? Yes. Is he mentally capable of being president? Probably not. Uh, but and I'm going to make the Frank Luntz statement again. If he backs out and doesn't endorse Harris, the Democratic Party is going to go nuts because they have focused so much of their efforts on, race and gender that, sidestepping a black woman, that would be a grievous crime against the progressive ideology. Grievous crime. It's like killing a baby. And yeah, that's where they are. And I don't think Harris, Joe Biden is, you know, younger Joe Biden was a very good candidate. Not necessarily for president, but he was a good candidate. Kamala Harris was never really a good candidate for much of anything. I mean, she had to drop out of the Democratic primary in 2020 before there was ever even a vote. Like, she had no support.
I think her highest polling number was around 2%.
Yeah. Like, I was a bit shocked when Biden chose her, just from a strategic viewpoint. Yeah. Like, at this point, we are what, 3.5 months away from an election, more or less, and we still don't know who the candidate of one of the parties is going to be. But this also brings up another something special. If Joe Biden doesn't drop out before the nomination process and his name is put on the ballots in all of these states, most states don't allow you to change the name of your party's candidate unless they die. Meaning that you could suffer massive down ballot issues because the members of your party don't have somebody at the top of the ticket to vote for. And I'm sure there would be, tons of legal challenges surrounding this. But can you even hope to litigate those before an election? Because this isn't a case of, a state deciding that a candidate can't appear on a ballot. This is the case of a party doing something that the pre-existing laws of a state do not accommodate. It's a very different animal. But yeah, that is where we are now. So any final thoughts on that, Colton?
God bless us all.
God save us all. So anyway, to those of you still listening, thank you for doing so. We hope you'd enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. And leave a comment. We love getting feedback from our audience. So thank you all for listening, and we hope you learned something today. Take care, everybody.
Have a good one, folks.